Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is the web seminar series organized by Republic of Turkey, Director of Communication. So my name is Murat Yeşiltaş. I am the Director of Security Studies at SETA Foundation. So today we are going to talk about Turkey's vision of equity and cooperation in the Eastern Mediterranean. So we have distinguished speakers. First of all, I would like to introduce our speakers. We have the first speaker, Mr. Ambassador, Republic of Turkey to Italy, Murat Salim Esenli. We have also Ambassador Carlo Marsili. He's a retired ambassador. He is the senior advisor in ISPI, Middle East and North Africa. We have also Valeria Giannotta. She is the international relation scholar, THK University. We have also Çağatay Erciyes, Ambassador Çağatay Erciyes. He's the ambassador under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Republic of Turkey. So, of course, we are going to talk about a very hot debate. The Eastern Mediterranean has become a flashpoint in international politics with the involvement of regional and external actors. In the region, Turkey and the Turkish Cypriots have unalienable rights based on international law. Turkey's action aim at defending its rights and the rights of Turkish Cypriots will never deviate from the international law. This is the general framework of Turkish perspective. But of course, today we are going to look at the detail to understand what is the Turkey's specific perception and how the external and regional actors perceive the development in the region. So first of all, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Ambassador Murat Salim Esenli. Mr. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, all. I would like to thank the Presidency's Communications Department for this timely webinar, and I greet my fellow panelists warmly. Without further ado, I would like to give a bird's eye view of the recent developments unfolding in the Eastern Mediterranean. But while we are looking at this very critical subject, I think we need to flip through the pages of international newspapers and magazines. And as it appears, the intention is just to present this whole case as if it had just erupted recently, as if it came through clear out of the blue. However, there is a certain negligence that we see, and probably intended negligence on the part of the international media as to how this issue came into the forefront of international agenda. And while doing that, I think it is very critical to remember a number of issues where Turkey had found itself in a similar position. But now, overall approach is, with the examples that I will give in a minute, intention is just to immediately load Turkey with the culpability of the issue and immediately put Turkey in a dock and assume that it is extremely wrong and has got numerous violations under its belt, and now it was about time to give certain order to this confusion. Now, this is not the case, and here while doing that, of course, I do not want to go into technicalities because I know that my good friend and colleague, Ambassador Erciyes, would be dwelling upon those subjects, but I just want to, again, give an interesting background here. As you would remember, back in the 1999, when the head of, the ringleader of PKK, Öcalan, was finally captured by the Turkish forces in Nairobi, the interesting thing has happened. That was as if, PKK was something that popped up almost recently and Turkey had made an operation. Whereas in that period, Öcalan, during its confessions, in its declarations, indicated that PKK enjoyed the Greek support in terms of training, in terms of weapons, in terms of giving protection, and so every issue that relates to Greece and unfortunately the Greek Cypriot administration has a certain history. And this is one example, but it came upon to the attention of the international community in 1999 when Öcalan was captured. And another element that I want to remind you here is that ringleader Öcalan was using Greek Cypriot passport when he was captured. So there is already an extremely biased, extremely hostile approach among Greek and Greek Cypriots dating back to decades. And now the second issue, the Cyprus problem. The Cyprus problem didn't come about in 1974. It dates back to 1963 when the Turkish Cypriots rights were usurped. And we have been living this on and on. And there has been a lot of mistakes made, unfortunately, on the side of European Union. And with that mistake, we see that Greek Cypriots, without resolving their differences with their northern neighbor, have been allowed to join in as a member. And all these things, unfortunately, culminated into today's problem. Again, the issue that we are dealing with today is going back to 2003. And again, the watersheds about that event will be shared probably very widely, again, by my colleague, Ambassador Çağatay Erciyes. So I just want to stop myself with respect to these two interesting events. And regarding also PKK, back in the early 1990s, the PKK terrorist elements and some other terrorist elements which were constantly agitating Turkey were kept in special camp in Athens, in Lavrion camp. And in this camp, things were much different than the camps that we read about in today's terms, for instance, in Lesbos. They didn't have any fires. They were living with certain comfort and support. Now, coming to this issue, again, we see a very skewed approach about what's happening in the Eastern Mediterranean. And therefore, I am extremely happy to see that Italy is not scumped into this kind of a game, because after all, Italy is a country which we have been cooperating intensely in numerous fields. But of course, our relationship with Italy dates back to centuries, not decades, but centuries. And so as a seafaring nation, Italy has an accumulated knowledge of all the international principles and jurisprudence. And so we have been explaining to our Italian colleagues about where Turkey is starting from and what is our fundamental principles are. And with respect to that, I just want to indicate that Italy just recently, which was on the 7th of June, if I'm not mistaken, signed an agreement with Greece. Now, this agreement had been in the diplomatic pipelines for 40 years. And out of desperation, in my opinion, Greece decided to sign this agreement, although it was negotiated, but it was on the shelves. Then nothing was happening about it. It was in a dormant state. And with this desperation, just with the intention of actually either containing or encircling Turkey, that they've rushed back to this. And we are actually happy with this agreement. As my Minister Çavuşoğlu indicated, that it contains all the principles that Turkey upholds vis-a-vis Eastern Mediterranean. So what we are saying as Turkey is we need to continue with dialogue, and we have to resolve our differences at a bilateral level. And we, of course, can only do that through negotiations. And while negotiating, there are already established set of rules. And if we are, as the members of the international community, and if we are adhering to a rule-based arrangement, we need to comply with these existing rules and regulations and principles, including the jurisprudence. And so that's why we are not perplexed, I must admit. I mean, this is a very normal, something customary to us. We always see this kind of reaction coming from Greece and Greek Cypriots. They try to really fire up certain animosity, hostility towards Turkey. And some countries are not, in my opinion, maybe I'm going to be a little bit undiplomatic here, is not smart. For instance, France has been scumped into this, but Italy has been very, very strategic. And we have seen Italy's position within the context of the joint communique of Med7 summit. Although this communique is not something that we can embrace fully, but at least there was a careful wording embedded in this. And I believe this has got a lot to do with the normal communication which exists between my President Erdogan, and his counterpart, Prime Minister Conte, and my Minister Çavuşoğlu, and his counterpart, Foreign Minister Di Maio. So, and they know far too well that Turkey is for dialogue. We are not here to really create a problem which could probably turn this place into an inferno, but we are definitely in favor of a solution, a peaceful solution, amicable solution, but again, based on principles that all the international community is operating with. And so this is the fundamental point. And I would like to also continue indicating that unfortunately Greek Cypriot administration's strong intention, strong desire, and also actions which usurp the rights of the Turkish Cypriots is definitely unacceptable by Turkey. And we would continue defending the Turkish Cypriots' rights with respect to that. And it has been abundantly clear by President Erdogan, by my minister, and numerous other platforms that we are going to be extremely adamant about this aspect. And of course, we would like to emphasize another perspective here. The perceptions that we see that's being designed around Turkey is extremely counterproductive. One element that we see coming into the picture is the EU's role. EU, unlike with other cases, started putting itself in the position of a prosecutor or a judge. European Union does not have that authority and has never expressed any opinion about issues of this sort among its own members. So we would like EU to play its useful role in convincing Greece and Greek Cypriots to come to act according to the international laws and principles, and at the same time, of course, in the case of Greek Cypriots, that we are open dialogue with Turkish Cypriots, Greek Cypriots, all the guarantor powers at the same table. So we are open for discussion, we are open for dialogue, but with the intention of resolving them and based on established principles. So, and with regards to EU, as I said, EU should play its constructive role towards convincing the Greeks and Greek Cypriots to play a more logical and more peaceful role, and to stay away from inflammatory rhetoric, because this type of rhetoric, and at the same time some of the actions that has been taken place for the past couple of days are not helpful, because first of all we need to create a conducive atmosphere for this kind of activity, and they are constantly pushing away from this arrangement. And of course, this is not going to be helpful. The region has already so many problems as it is. So we need to spare the region from another ensuing political or military even complication here. And with respect to that, again, we are open, and I hope Italy and our Italian friend would continue playing their constructive role with respect to this. And I must admit, there is another agreement which was signed back in 1980s between Italy and Tunisia that I would like to recall. That is an agreement about the continental shelf boundary of two countries. And within this agreement, we again see the same principles that we have been upholding, that we have been promoting and introducing and explaining to all our colleagues, friends, and at the same time, all those who are interested in hearing our views. So I think importance here is that there has to be a leveled playing field created, away from bias, away from prejudices, away from preconceived notions vis-a-vis Turkey and this subject matter, and that we could sit down and I'm sure we would be able to iron out our differences. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Our second speaker is Carlo Marsili. Carlo, I would like to pose a couple of small questions to, generally frame your speech. First of all, how do you think about the main problem? What are the main problems? And secondly, how do you see the future of the, this conflict? I mean, so to speak, conflict in the region. And finally, in what sense you think the European Union or European countries should play a role to, solve this crisis? The floor is yours, Carlo.
Thank you very much. I am very grateful to the organizers of this event and to have the opportunity of getting in touch with Ambassador Murat Esenli, Ambassador Çağatay, Erciyes, Professor Valeria Giannotta, and the moderator, Professor Yeşiltaş. Good morning to everybody. Well, Turkey is facing at the moment criticism on many European media because of its assertive policy in Libya and East Mediterranean. So the question is, are these critics correct or not? I think it is important to understand the reasons of this policy. Starting from Libya, the last developments are encouraging because the two sides have started to negotiate and reach some agreements. It will take a long time, probably, before a complete settlement, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. So in my view, Turkey is playing an important role in Libya. First of all, it has supported, as Italy, the only legitimate government recognized by the United Nations. As a matter of fact, France, Egypt, Emirates, and Russia have supported General Haftar, and without the Turkish intervention, the situation would now be different. So if they accepted to seriously negotiate, it is also thanks to Turkey, which put the boots on the ground, and President al-Sarraj is very well aware of it. Now, Libya is extremely important for Italy too, because it is a neighbor country, rich of oil, and can control the illegal immigration, which has become one of the most serious issues for Italy. I have always insisted on the fact that Italy and Turkey share many interests in Libya, and in fact, they should try to deepen their cooperation in that country. The situation in East Mediterranean is complicated, and I expect NATO to exercise a work of mediation. NATO is more entitled to do that because as we have seen, the last week summit in Corsica of Med 7 has produced no practical results, if not a generical support to Greece and Cyprus, as the French president wanted. But according to the joint declaration, the problems should be solved through dialogue. Now, in my view, it is impossible for Turkey, not only for this Turkish government, but for any Turkish government, to accept the Greek position according to which the delimitation of the exclusive economic zone should start from the territorial waters of the Aegean Islands, instead than from the continental platform. Because that means that Turkey could not conduct any activity in its frontal sea. And this is frankly unacceptable. I am a good witness of it, being in this moment in Kash, and the Greek island of Kastelloritz or Meis is just in front of me. By the way, Turkey has not signed the International Convention of Montego Bay on the rights of the sea. And we have also to take into consideration that Greece has militarized in the last years the Dodecanese Islands in violation of the Italian-Greek Treaty of Paris of 1947. Besides that, there is the issue of Cyprus, which, as everybody knows, was only fictiously solved, but in reality it was not. The Greek Cypriot government cannot represent the entire community. And it was a big mistake to make Cyprus enter the European Union before settling the domestic problem after the 2004 referendum on the Annan Plan. I said this in 2004 when I was ambassador to Turkey, and I've repeated that many times. So it's not because of this occasion. Therefore, the territorial sea of the island is contested, but it is not fair to act without respecting Northern Cyprus as a separate entity. In the meantime, Turkey has stressed that in the last day especially, it's ready to negotiate. And if the Greek side will show goodwill, I think some progress can be done. And in this perspective, I do hope and believe that on the occasion of the European Council of 24th, 25th of September, the German presidency, Italy, and other like-minded countries, I'm thinking of Spain, Portugal, Malta, maybe Hungary, Poland, Romania, will refuse the possibility of imposing sanctions against Turkey, as France, Greece, and Cyprus might suggest. As far as other countries are concerned, very briefly, it's clear that Russia's geopolitical interests in the area are often opposite to the NATO's ones, but it is important to realize that we need flexible relations with Moscow, and sanctions are not, in my view, a good way to deal with it. As we know, next November, the presidential elections will take place in the United States, and at the moment they are concentrated on them. So President Trump is not showing much interest in the Mediterranean, even if his Secretary of State, Pompeo, was engaged. But in case of a second term, he might change his mind. What is important is to maintain a good level of cooperation among NATO members. As far as Turkish-Italian relations are concerned, the two governments should continue to work for deepening their political, economic, and cultural cooperation, which is already very good, also and especially thanks to Ambassador in Rome, Murat Esenli. Together with Professor Valeria Giannotta, we are also working in several think tanks in order to improve the image of Turkey in Italy. Italy may contribute to maintain open the strategic dialogue between European Union and Turkey at level of governments and also between the civil societies. It is a pity that no progress has been done for upgrading the customs union and for extending the visa liberalization regime to Turkey, because both would be essential elements for a greater integration, which would create a win-win situation for all. But I'm confident that in the next future, we will be able to register some important progress. Turkey should do its best to avoid isolation and polarization. European Union and Turkey have a common destiny, and this destiny must be reinforced in every occasion. So European Union, to ask your question, should play a role, but at the moment, in the moment of this confrontation in the East Mediterranean, the role is not up to European Union, in my view, because the European Union has a principle of a general common solidarity with Greece, so it is not impartial. The role should be taken eventually by NATO much better. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for your very fruitful speech. Professor Valeria, I would like to ask two, I think, main questions about these, complex situation in the region. So, as you know, there are many different type of players which are trying to involve into the situation, into the crisis. How we should make sense of this kind of complex relationship between regional and external actors to understand this current crisis? And secondly, what is the solution? How we should change the patterns of this conflict? The floor is yours, Professor Valeria.
Thank you so much. Actually, let me start by thank once again the Directorate of Communication of the Presidency of the Republic of Turkey for the kind invitation. It's a real pleasure for me to share this virtual platform with all of you distinguished guests. And I do believe that the time is a proper time in order to put some light on what's going on in the Mediterranean. By answering to your question, now, I would like to leave beside the technical aspect of what's going on in the region nowadays, but I would rather focus on the political elements. And as international relations and political science experts, I would like to say that what's going on in the Mediterranean nowadays is the outcome of a very deep fault line. A deep fault line, a cleavage between Turkey and Greece that of course has its effects, spillover effects within some international organizations such as NATO, within Europe as a political project, and within some and among some European states as well. Of course, as Mr. Ambassador Esenli and Mr. Ambassador Marsili pointed out, the core issues, the main diverging point and the main point of this tension has been rotating and pivoting around the Cyprus issue that unfortunately is still unresolved dispute. Without underlying once again the historical elements that the bringing to the separation of the island, but starting from what was for me an historical mistake, or in other words, the full accession of Cyprus as a full member within European Union, that has created a sort of deadlock in not just in Turkey accession process within European Union, but even on the content of the relationship between Turkey and some European countries, and on a sort of stalemate for the resolution of the island. I would like to say that this first line has developed by time to time, and he has played a sort of spillover effect in the whole region by including some others regional actors. So if at the beginning the main dispute was between the Greeks in the Cyprus and Turkey in the other side, by time to time and overall after the 2009, when the energy sources were discovered around the island, the dispute started to increase and it became wider and wider. So we had faced two alignments. In one side, the Greeks, the Cypriots, some European countries, Israel, Egypt, enter into the game beside beside Greece. And in the other side, we witness a much more isolating position of Turkey. This new fault line, this new cleavage actually had the nature of a new attempt for a creation of new balance of power. Of course, Turkey in such situation wouldn't pay the price to get isolated more and more, isolated from an energy point of view, from an economic point of view, commercial point of view, but even from a political point of view. Therefore, if we put all these elements in the context, we can understand even why Turkey tried to fulfill, in one hand, the vacuum left by Europe and some European countries in the Eastern Mediterranean, and then taking the place, entering into the game in Libya, in the Libyan context, and in the other hand, to show its own muscles in order to protect its own rights and the rights of the Turkish community in northern Cyprus. Considering this, we can understand the signature of the Memorandum of Understanding with the Government of National Accord of Libya back in November 2009, that it had a military connotation, but also a maritime connotation that was very important. So now we are in front of different cleavages, different front lines, the involvement of different regional powers, but always the involvement of some international powers as well. And we are in front of some core issues that they are not just related to Turkey, European countries, but core issues that they are just referring to each single actor, such as the security of Mediterranean theater, the migration issues, the counterterrorism issues, and security, energy at military level. Therefore, it's a very complicated situation and everybody has a stake in the situation. When it comes to your second question, what is the solution? Let me say that personally, I got a bit disappointed after the last 10th of September meeting in Corsica, held and chaired by the French President Macron, when I read one statement. Macron said Turkey is no longer a partner in this region. And this is a sign of a deep blindness and a biased approach, according to me. First of all, because Turkey is a Mediterranean country. So he has a huge stake, and he has a huge role in the Mediterranean region, and he has to protect its own right. And as we saw, by excluding Turkey from any political process, any attempt, has created a sort of escalation of military, a sort of military escalation, let me say. So in order to achieve the so-called Pax Mediterranea, according to me, we urge to have a pragmatic engagement of Turkey and to change the vision from a sort of zero-sum game resolution of the conflict, of the tension, to a sort of win-win negotiation process by taking into account what are the rights of Turkey and the Turkish citizens and Turkish Cypriots in the other side of the island. I would say this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Valeria. Mr. Ambassador, you have been extensively working on this file. I would like to ask you a very, short question. What is Turkey's position and how Turkey is going to strengthen this position to solve the problem in the region?
Thank you very much. First of all, let me join other speakers in congratulating the organizers of this timely event. And I'd like to express my warmest greetings to all participants, and especially to my fellow Ambassador Esenli. Well, what is the situation in the Eastern Mediterranean? Well, the issue, first of all, is a maritime boundary delimitation issue. Maritime boundaries in the Eastern Mediterranean are yet to be delimited by valid international agreements. That is one part of the issue. We used to, and maritime boundary issues are generally around the world are dormant issues. When coastal states start competing for natural resources, then those boundary issues surface. That is exactly what happened in the Eastern Mediterranean. Whenever new gas fields were discovered, then the coastal states started to compete with each other for the delimitation of the maritime boundaries. But the Eastern Mediterranean is a difficult region. There are 10 countries, if you include Palestine and the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus. We have the Middle East issue, we have the Cyprus issue, and on top of it, it's an enclosed sea. So we used to have problems with, we still have these problems with Greece in the Aegean Sea. Now the East Med issue is added on top of it. And what was Turkey's position? Turkey has always been in favor of dialogue. That is what international law requires states in the first place. If you have a problem, maritime delimitation problem, talk to each other. That is what international law says. And for the Aegean issue, you know, there was a process which is called exploratory talks, and I was part of this process, and we've had 60 rounds of talks between Turkey and Greece from 2002 to 2016 to address all outstanding issues. But the Greeks stopped this process in 2016, and the Mediterranean issue has become the flashpoint. And we urge our Greek colleagues, Greece, the government of Greece, to continue this dialogue process to include the Eastern Mediterranean issue. President Erdogan last year, he met with Prime Minister Mitsotakis in New York during the UN General Assembly. I was there as well. And he offered Greece to resume those talks to include the Mediterranean issue as well. But we didn't get any positive reply to that proposal. Then there was the NATO summit earlier this year in London. Turkey, President Erdogan met again with Prime Minister Mitsotakis, and we also reiterated, again, he reiterated to continue these talks, but they turned down this offer again. But what Greece is trying to do, Greece is, instead of talking to Turkey, they try to use, as Ambassador Esenli mentioned, they try to abuse their EU membership to impose their maximalist maritime boundary claims to Turkey. But this is not a productive approach, and the Greeks take hostage of EU-Turkey relations in return. This is not the right approach. The Turkey's position is that we are ready to talk to Greece without any preconditions. If they come up with some preconditions, we can come up with many preconditions as well, but this is not the right way. And what European Union should do is European Union should support dialogue and cooperation between Turkey and Greece, but this is not the case. As Murat, Ambassador Esenli also mentioned, unfortunately, EU follows a biased policy against Turkey. And this is against international law, and this is against past EU practice and EU acquis. Why I'm saying this? Because there were many, and there are still many maritime boundary delimitation issues involving EU members or involving a EU member and non-EU member. For example, between Spain and Morocco, between Spain and Algeria, similar problems involving islands. Even with Spain and Malta, as far as I know, you haven't delimited, you have competing claims on continental shelf. But EU in all these maritime boundary issues has never taken a side in a way to support one side's view. And Turkey has become the exception, unfortunately. This is against international law because international law, as I mentioned, requires states first and foremost to start talks and negotiations. This is also against the EU acquis because EU has no competence on maritime boundary delimitation. There was a decision earlier this year of the European Court of Justice concerning the Slovenia and Croatia maritime boundary issue. And the court said EU has no competence on maritime boundary delimitation. So I think the EU's biased approach complicates the issue and encourages more the intransigence of the Greece and the Greek Cypriots. So to sum it up, Turkey is ready to talk to Greece. We are for dialogue, and many EU countries are supporting this. And we look forward to talk to our Greek friends to address all of the issues. This is one aspect of the issue. The second aspect, as Professor Valeria and other participants mentions, the Cyprus issue. Well, Cyprus, remember, the Republic of Cyprus was established in 1960, as Ambassador Esenli mentioned, based on the political equality of the two sides on the island. But the that means Turkish Cypriots do have equal rights over the offshore resources of the island. But these rights are disregarded not only by the Greek Cypriots, but also by the European Union as well. Turkey and Turkish Cypriots didn't cause the current problems. It all started with the unilateral actions of the Greek Cypriots. Remember, Greek Cypriots, before the settlement of the Cyprus issue, they concluded maritime boundary agreements with the neighboring countries, 2003 with Egypt, 2007 with Lebanon, 2010 with Israel. And Turkey and the Turkish Cypriots said to the Greek Cypriots, don't do this, don't engage in maritime boundary delimitation because the Cyprus issue is still there. This issue should be addressed after the settlement. They didn't listen to us. We also approached at the time to the European Union as well, but nobody paid attention to Turkey's and the Turkish Cypriots calls. In 2011 was a turning point because the Greek Cypriots started their first drilling on the 19th September 2011. Then this first drilling left Turkey and the Turkish Cypriots with no choice but to take some concrete actions. So Turkish Cypriots followed the Greek Cypriot model. They concluded the maritime boundary delimitation agreement with Turkey. Like the Greek Cypriots, Turkish Cypriots drove offshore blocks around the island, and they granted Turkish petroleum exploration and exploitation licenses. So now, currently, if we come back to today, the Turkish Cypriots, Greek Cypriots engage in offshore activities. They made contracts with international oil companies. So does the Turkish Cypriots. Turkish Cypriots made a contract with the Turkish Petroleum, and Turkish Petroleum are engaging in offshore activities on behalf of the Turkish Cypriots. Now the European Union is asking that Turkish Cypriots should stop these activities. Well, it is up to the Turkish Cypriots. For that to happen, Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots should sit together and agree on a cooperation mechanism which will include equitable revenue sharing. This is regardless of the settlement of the Cyprus issue, because both sides on the island are engaging in offshore activities, and we have to bring them together. That is what we are telling to our European Union. We're telling to European Union, our European friends, you should support dialogue on cooperation between the Turkish Cypriots and the Greek Cypriots on offshore hydrocarbon resources. If they don't do this, then Turkish Cypriots will continue their offshore activities. That is, in terms of the Cyprus aspect of the issue, that is where Turkey stands. The third element is the political environment. Some of the previous speakers mentioned this. Turkey, Professor Valeria mentioned this. Turkey, as the longest coastal front in the Eastern Mediterranean, cannot be ignored for any cooperation, energy cooperation, or maritime boundary delimitation issues. But this is not the case. Other coastal states are trying to isolate Turkey and the Turkish Cypriots, and they have launched so-called Energy East Med Gas Forum. We perceive this as a political forum rather than a genuine energy cooperation. These initiatives will never be successful if they do not include Turkey and the Turkish Cypriots. We've been telling this to our European friends, and now there are some initiatives, new initiatives coming up from the European Union. Turkey is supportive of these initiatives, all-inclusive Mediterranean East Med cooperation to include all the actors, including the Turkish Cypriots. We support these initiatives. If you want, I can go on, I can dwell on the Turkey's legal views, which I'm an expert on, but I have to limit myself at this point. And if you have any questions, I would be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Mr. Ambassador Murat Esenli, I would like to back to you to take a very small comment about the questions. Of course, we are going through a very difficult time in which the coronavirus pandemic, I think, is playing a very crucial role, not only in domestic politics of the countries, but also it is playing a vital role in the international politics. Probably it's going to be a new game changer under this, circumstances. To be more concrete, what is your to-do list to de-escalate this situation, to open a new chapter, or if you like to re-energize the relationship between Turkey and the European Union?
Before I answer your question, I think it would be fair to credit the European Union's conscious effort to stimulate the Greek Cypriots and also Greece into a more conciliatory, more peaceful approach. With respect to, of course, Greece and Greek Cypriots, I think European Union, especially the term president Germany, Chancellor Angela Merkel, and the president of the Council, President Michael, they are all making a very conscious effort to reduce the level of tension that we see. These are helpful, but we also notice that sometimes we are approached again and with a certain request of showing certain flexibility. The point is that we have been extremely flexible. Our president has been quite vocal about the flexibility that Turkey has shown on a number of occasions just to stimulate, especially in this case, Greece, to resort to dialogue rather than utilizing these very unproductive, very inflammatory approaches. I think, although I have said in the past that you made a historic mistake by accepting Greek Cypriot administration, which has been abundantly mentioned by Ambassador Marsili, but here EU is, in some respects, in certain lanes, trying to play a more constructive role. And with regards to, of course, Italy, we know all along that Italy has a very comprehensive understanding of the legality of this matter. So the jurisprudence that I have enumerated, my good friend and colleague, Çağatay Erciyes, Ambassador Erciyes had indicated, are very well known to Italy. So when you are well versed about the technicalities of the subject matter, naturally you will resort to them. Now, my concern is not so much so Italy, but my concern is the less knowledgeable members of the European Union who do not have this kind of a background. So that's why it is essential for the other European Union members to do their homeworks, basically, so that they could be critical of the versions, these very arbitrary versions that are being presented by both Greeks and the Greek Cypriots within the context of European Union. And also, I fully agree with, for instance, Professor Giannotta vis-a-vis the existing problems in the Mediterranean, whether it would be refugee situation, international terrorism, and also there are a lot of potentials, as has been mentioned, regarding the hydropower, hydro energy elements. So we ought to be thinking about this particular issue in a very comprehensive way, because every angle, every approach really brings you to another aspect that needs to be, I think, contemplated very carefully. Because if we would make any mistake in one of these elements, I think we would be altering the balance. So it could come down crushing. And so we need to be extremely conscious of all the aspects. And so, as my colleague and friend mentioned, we are open to negotiations without preconditions, open to talks without preconditions. So this needs to be emphasized time and again. And here in Italy, from our side, of course, as NBC, we have been informing our counterparts comprehensively and timely, and at the same time, again, putting the considerable emphasis on Turkey's readiness to conclude these matters in a peaceful manner. So I think the worrisome part is that still, to a great extent, in Europe, we see this selective memory. The selective memory is, again, as pointed out, there is a history, there is a background, and without recognizing and understanding this background, we would not be able to charter the future in a lasting, in an amicable, and in a peaceful manner, in a just manner. So that's why we need to put many things into the right perspective. I don't know whether I have been able to address your question. Maybe I have been a little bit lengthier than you expected, but for the sake of clarity.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Ambassador Carlo, I would like to ask you another question. Of Turkey's position, I think, is very clear in terms of maintaining the negotiation. And Turkey is proposing that let's talk, right? Let's talk is the best solution to solve the potential crisis. But at the same time, you know, the Greece position is different, and the France is supporting the Greece position very harshly. Don't you think that this conflict is undermining the NATO's capacity, NATO's strategy in this region? How do you think about this aspect of the conflict?
For sure, no, you are right. This conflict, this kind of positions may undermine the NATO ability to mediate, but we have to take into consideration the fact that the position of France, which is at the moment the country more negative towards Turkey, is stronger inside European Union than inside NATO. In NATO, there are more countries. There are the American position, which is very important, of course, to evaluate. So altogether, I believe that what might be not reached inside the European Union could be reached inside NATO, because the possibility of NATO of forcing, between brackets, Greece to talk, it's bigger. Greece is aware of the fact that inside the European Union, she can count on the French position, but not only on the French position, on the position of other countries as well. And above all, on the fact that at the end of the day, it is difficult also for countries which think differently, like Italy, for instance, to assume a negative position towards a member country. While in NATO, the situation is different. But as you said, what is important is to talk, to be aware of the fact that there is no solution without talking, that at a certain moment the two sides have to discuss together. And I do hope that it will be done. Not easy, but let's our finger crossed.
Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador. Professor Valeria, I would like to back to you. I think, as far as I can understand from the strategic vision of Greek sides, they're trying to, develop a new containment strategy of Turkey, in which the restraint is the main methods. And as you strongly underline, French is trying to, excluding Turkey from this new regional balance of power, let's say balance of power. How do you think about the strategic implication of this new so to speak, foreign policy vision of France and Greece. For example, arming the Greece, is perceived as one of the important ways to contain and restrain of Turkey. On the other side, US has also, some important leverage in the region. How do you think about the strategic implication of excluding Turkey from this geopolitical, let's say, game in the region?
Well, let me start by saying that Greece, of course, feel protected by being member of European Union. So the principle of solidarity and the principle of the strongest is a sort of winning over the table. Of course, any solution in the prevention. I mean, I don't know what will be the implication. I mean, but in the long term, because it's something that all of us would like to avoid, right? The militarization again of the Mediterranean, escalation of I mean, to see another military escalation. But what instead I would like to see is the prevention of this military escalation. And again, Turkey, which is considered as the most dangerous power, because it referred to hard power before than the others by sending the warship ships on the water, international waters. He is the one who proved to be able to more open to negotiate on the table. So I think this military escalation will not bring, as I said before, any lastable solution. Instead, any solution will pass through a negotiation and to a prevention of any military escalation. And I do believe that even the European side, the Greece and France would understand this, hopefully. I mean, but this is my wishful thinking, actually.
Thank you, Professor. Mr. Ambassador Çağatay, I mean, there are many critiques about Turkey's, new foreign policy activism in the region. And from the European side, or the particular European countries are emphasizing that Turkey-Libyan agreements are the main, driving factors behind this conflict. How do you think about this criticism?
Well, we do not agree with those criticism, and as far as, because I took part in the preparation of the maritime deal between Turkey and Libya. If I may share some slides with you.
You can use the share screen mode if you want.
Yes, you see that, right?
Yes, thank you.
As we did a maritime deal last year on the 27th of November. This deal was done in the face of the unilateral actions of not only the Greek Cyprus, but also Greece as well, because in 2014, despite the objections of the Libyans, Greece drew offshore blocks, especially in the south of the island of Crete, in a way to violate the continental shelf rights of Libya. There were many rumors and criticisms concerning our agreement with Libya, but it was the Libyan side also approached us to do this agreement in order to protect their rights, because in that area, Greece has again maximalist maritime boundary claims, and they say that even not only the island of Crete, but even the small islets, rocks, should generate exclusive economic zone and continental shelf, which is not the case in international law. So this maritime boundary deal that we did with the Libyans came out of the necessity of both countries to protect their own continental shelf rights. And we did this agreement with the legitimate government of Libya. We passed this on to the United Nations. It's a valid agreement. If Greece has any problems with that agreement, Greece should sit to table with Libya and Turkey. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, all speakers, for their very valuable contribution to this panel. Now, I would like to, close the session. I would like to thank you, Mr. Ambassador Murat Esenli. I would like to thank you, Ambassador Carlo Marsili, and thank you for your contribution, Professor Valeria. And I would like to thank you, Ambassador Çağatay Erciyes. I would like to thank you also to listening this panel, which is organized by Directorate of Communicate of Republic of Turkey. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you very much. Goodbye to everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you indeed.